so excited to welcome Daniel Keller to the show. We are identifying those undiscovered crypto gems in the middle of the crypto winter, and I really can't find one more exciting than Flux. So welcome, Daniel.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for having me on. And yes, it is. I know the rabbit hole. I fell down it before too, and I never came back out. So it is exciting in a world full of crap coins. To find something that's actually fixing. It has a use case and it's fixing a problem.
Absolutely. You were the co-founder of Flux, correct?
Yes, sir.
Great. So I want to dive into the tokenomics, the adoption, the technology, the roadmap, all that. But first, could you just let us know what Flux actually does?
Yeah, so in the late stages of the bull run of 2017, there was a lot of these copy and paste fork projects. And myself and the co-founders got together. It's myself, Parker Honeyman, today is Commenta, got together and we talked about what we wanted to see. And one of the problems that was like a glaring issue at that particular point in time was the fact that the big data companies were just getting bigger and bigger. And, as a matter of fact, Google's motto for many, many years was don't be evil. And it was a jab directly at other projects that were being evil. And you'll notice that that's been completely removed. So our goal was to don't be evil again. We wanted to create a decentralized compute network. Anyone could participate from all across the world and allow compute resources to be reused. And that gave birth to Flux. So we were originally born as Zcash. We're a fork of Bitcoin. We're actually a fork of Zcash, but then we removed the security or the privacy pieces. So now it's just a Bitcoin fork essentially. And we built on top of that. So we built what's called proof of useful work. So our node structure runs front ends, back ends, dApps, game servers, websites, WordPress, you name it. It runs it. So our goal was to create something that actually fixed a problem. And we did just that with Flux.
Yeah, and currently there's no more valuable resource than computing power. That's why NVIDIA is pumping so much, because it provides that architecture. And here we have decentralized cloud computing, or is it like 12,000 nodes around the world?
It's about 12,500 nodes. We've got about 165,000 GPUs securing the network that'll within the next several months will be switched to proof of useful work so that people can use it for AI rendering, whatever it is. So our goal was to create a completely different paradigm shift for miners, for node operators, for people in the cryptocurrency space, regular people that want to participate as well. So I have a nice graphics card in this computer, and at nighttime when I'm not using it, I want to put it on useful work. And if it gets tapped for useful work, it's rewarded at a very high rate. So because there's people out there that need those compute resources.
Absolutely. It's just so exciting. So we're talking about thousands of computers around the world, decentralized. I just saw the map come out showing how decentralized this network actually is. Just every country, right, has a node essentially at this point. Just all over the world, thousands of computers, people getting paid to provide a very valuable resource, which is computing power. So very revolutionary technology. Can it scale? How big do you expect this to become?
Every intention. Flux was built kind of in reverse. You have like Ethereum, who had this first mover's dilemma. Like, what do we do? Go to proof of stake? How do we scale this? Are we sharding? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Flux took all their problems and figured it out at the beginning so that way we could scale, and we can scale on demand. I mean, my anticipation is my target is to take 1% of the total global market of compute resources. So from AWS, Microsoft, Azure, so on and so forth. And if we do that and put that back in the hands of the people that are running the network, we'll continue to keep growing. My expectation is by next year is to have 100,000 WordPress sites running on Flux, which is pretty amazing. And if you take a look at our current deployment mechanism, it's a straight hockey stick like this, because people are starting to figure out we're faster, we're decentralized, we're scalable, we're cheaper. Big time cheaper than some of these other players in the space. So yeah, it's a win-win across the board, I believe. So yes, the sky's the limit.
I have seen that chart showing, like the cost of AWS, the cost of Google, and then the cost of Flux for the exact same computing power. And it's like 100th of the cost, something like that. So one question, security, because that's going to be a big thing. Like, well, it's decentralized. Is it as secure as like my AWS compute?
I would say it's even more secure. We're built on Bitcoin's technology with proof of work. So we're taking probably the most secure thing that's ever been created in terms of compute. And we've built on top of that with our node infrastructure. We've also integrated IPFS, interplanetary file system, as our transport mechanism. And we use Docker Hub and Docker to actually use the deployments on top of the network. And we are even taking it a step further, and we're starting to integrate Kubernetes parts as well. So essentially what we've done is we've taken all the strength from your centralized providers, capitalized on those strengths and reduced the weaknesses. We don't have data centers. We don't have point of failures. The nice thing about Flux is you deploy on 3 instances all across the globe. So if you lose a particular area, it's picking it up in other areas, and it's redundant. So we've got we're working on private enterprise-based deployments now as well. So we're ready for the enterprise infrastructure to come on board, and we're going to just continue to keep growing. So I think the question that you've asked is the question. Let's go back in the time machine when everything was on-prem, and people say, "Wait a minute, you're telling me that this cloud thing exists somewhere and it's out there, and my data? What about my data? Is it going to be secure? Is it going to be safe? And along comes cloud, and it kind of fixes that. People start to gravitate toward now. The majority of deployments are on the cloud network versus on-prem. But I think it's a step further with Web3. I think you can still have your on-prem. You can still have your Web2 cloud solutions with AWS or Azure or anybody like that. And then you have Web3 as your redundant backup piece. And we have no negatives. There's no target. If Amazon decides they don't want your application running on their network, guess what they're going to do? They're going to kill it. With Flux, that doesn't happen. You can't censor it. So once it's been deployed and it's into the ethos, that's it. It's running. So now, just because you're decentralized doesn't mean you're lawless, but it definitely means that it reduces that ability for any one particular entity to take your application down.
Is it immutable? Like, is the code just locked? Is it similar to Bitcoin where no one can ever touch it again? If you believe that to be the case.
So it's the same code base as Bitcoin for our proof of work side. It's a transactional validation, all that kind of stuff. It's immutable. It'll always be there. Now, with the node network, works a little bit different. It works a little bit more like a standard cloud provider, but with the decentralized and the immutable pieces as well. So once it's been put on the blockchain, it can't be taken down by me or anyone else. However, you're still accountable for what you deploy. So, anyone that has used Bitcoin knows the fact that it's very transparent, and you have products like Chainalysis and others that evaluate that. So if you're putting something nefarious on the network, you're going to get found. It's just the way it is.
Wow. Okay. So now tokenomics, right? What does the token have to do with any of this?
Well, the nice thing about Flux is it's a fairly mined, and this is a gem. You talked about gems when we first started talking. I said this is a gem. No VC, proof of work. No outside financial investment. All mineable. 50% of the block reward goes to miners. 50% to the node operators. We've baked Flux, whether it's native chain Flux or it's our parallel assets, because we have this cross-chain scenario where we have Flux Binance Smart Chain, Flux Polygon, Flux Ethereum, Flux KDA, so on and so forth. We've baked it into everything. It's a utility asset. And I would say we're probably, other than Bitcoin, one of the only projects out there that fails the Howey test repeatedly, because we're a true utility-based asset. So if you want to deploy nodes, you need Flux. If you want to deploy a website, you need Flux. Game server, Flux. You want to use Zelcore, Flux. These are all. It is truly a utility-based token in the greatest sense of the world, which really opens up a lot of opportunities for us, because as the SEC and other people are starting to really scrutinize these projects that have pre-mines, or they're a proof of stake project where 100% of it was minted and 80% was given to a VC. They're securities, and they're going to be ruled as securities. I'm very confident that Flux will never be ruled as a security, because we've taken methodical steps to make sure that we were regulatory compliant across the board ever since the beginning of the project.
Yeah, in this environment of uncertainty where they just came down on Cardano, Solana, Cosmos, just because they did pre-sale, you guys are a pure digital commodity, right? Which is incredible, similar to Bitcoin. Okay, how about supply? So is there a fixed supply? Is it deflationary? Is it inflationary? What's going on there?
Yeah, so there's only 440 million Flux that'll ever exist ever. We're about halfway mined now with the halvenings because we have every 2.5 years. It'll be like 120 years till we're completely mined out. And we Bitcoin's about every 4 years. We're about every 2.5 years because what we're doing and the nature of what we're doing, we have to scale appropriately and very quickly. So there's two sides of the house. There's a proof of work side, and then there's the proof of stakes. Well, it's proof of use of work side. Proof of stake is what people would call it, but it's not. It's useful work. This can have on demand. So we can basically reduce the collateral demands on this anytime. This is more structured on this mining side. So both of those together equal scalability. And that's what we really were methodical about thinking is how is this going to work to allow us to grow exponentially? And that's exactly what we're running into right now is that exponential growth model.
Wow. Right. So fixed supply, very, very good tokenomics and serious adoption. So you're saying on all metrics, just a big hockey stick up, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And if you don't believe me, check out it's bunnyanalyst.com. They have a great user interface to track all of that. And you'll see where our total revenue is for the month, for the quarter, where we're at. We're up 625%. We had our 5-year internal projections. We beat that in the first quarter of this month. So our 5-year projections we've already beat that, which makes me go back and sharpen my pencil again and figure it back out again. So it's pretty awesome. And it's a great website to check the actual usage. You can see what nodes are deploying, which is our biggest customer, what projects are are running, and really be able to track everything.
Yeah. Is there a storage component to this similar to Filecoin?
Yeah, absolutely. So we instituted Flux, we call it Flux IPFS, but it's IPFS at its source. And there's a product in Flux Cloud is the blanket. And within that, you have Flux Drive, which is essentially decentralized Dropbox. You can sign up and use it just like Dropbox. And that we're currently in beta on that as well. So the Flux Cloud suite of services is definitely our goal is to not necessarily go after Filecoin, because I think you could absolutely see Filecoin integrated into Flux at some point. So you have these, this symbiotic relationships with other projects. But we wanted to make sure we had the native ability as well. And we've done that. So, I think you could in the future see Filecoin, storage, Golem, all these different projects that are doing something unique in terms of computational power, utilize Flux's infrastructure for basically use case in our marketplace.
Absolutely. And is that where the parallel assets come in? So you partnered up with Polygon, the Ethereums of the world. Are there groups of people that are part of those ecosystems that are going to be building on top of Flux?
So our goal with the holy grail of blockchain is interchain operability, is allowing these chains to work together. And we sat down and a couple of years ago, we figured out how to do that. This is not a wrapped asset. You're literally using Fusion, which is a decentralized platform, to move from your primary asset to any sub asset. So that allows us to participate in DeFi ecosystems, liquidity pools on different chains, everything that you can do on these different chains, Algorand, Ethereum, all these different ones. You can participate now. And as a matter of fact, Flux is like a number 3 project on Binance Smart Chain right now. So pretty impressive when you think about it. Yeah. It's also like a number 5 project on Algorand. It's also a number 10 project on Ethereum. I mean, it's just these different things in some of these pools. Now, Ethereum's a little bit different, but yeah. So in reality, we've expanded Flux into all these different chains and allow it to symbiotically work together.
Right. That's huge. So then one other thing I have to talk about is price action. So over the history of the chart of Flux, it seems to be making higher lows, right? Which is good. Are you happy from that perspective in terms of the long-term performance? Has it delivered what you've expected based on the halving cycles?
So I'll tell you, like I tell everyone else, I don't talk about price much at all, as a matter of fact. What I can say is this: we're very pleased with where we're at in regards to the rest of the market. So we're in probably the biggest down cycle since 2019-ish. We saw some blood in the streets there for sure. And I'm very happy with where Flux has fared. We've continued to keep our node count up in the light of even the challenges that are out there in the bear market. And I do believe that and this isn't financial advice, and I'm not an investor. Flux is highly. I always kid the guys. I have a little piece of paper right here on my desk, which is my price target. where I believe Flux should be, and we're nowhere even close to that shit. So, it's like anything else. You invest wisely. You only risk what you can lose, and we say fall down the rabbit hole, do the due diligence on the project, then you think about where you need to invest. And I would tell anyone this, if it was Bitcoin or Flux or whatever project, do your research, get comfortable with it, understand your risk exposure, and then invest. But if you look at Flux's charts, just like you alluded to, if you do a little TA, I think you're going to understand exactly where you're at with Flux.
There are proof of work assets that just have almost made all-time lows. And so I guess just understanding conceptually, what does that mean? Like, what do miners say when they see something like that? Could it weaken the network if people aren't getting paid? Like, how does that work? Are there risks with that?
Well, when Satoshi Nakamoto really put together the idea of proof of work, he understood that there would be what was called delayed return on investment. So we understand that because we've been in the space long enough, but new investors may not understand delayed return on investment. They only see what they're making in that particular month versus what their total expenditures are. We know that doesn't matter because this can ROI itself in literally a day. Because you've seen these markets just go parabolic. So you have to be more strategically thinking when you're kind of planning these out. And all miners are really business owners when it comes down to it. They're looking at how do I pay my bills? How do I build my bag? And how do I participate in this ecosystem? Right. So that's a business when you think about it. And I'm a miner at heart. That's how I came into the world. I was mining Ethereum very early on, Zcash, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Nice. And I'm still mining Flux. So the bottom line is that miners will come and miners will go. It doesn't affect our network security because we've built it out appropriately. And I think when you start giving, when the cycle starts to go like this and you start to add more miners on, people will start to turn their devices back on. We've got the folks that have stayed rock solid through the whole bear market. So that's great.
Right, because they're long-term believers, but that is a huge point that miners can come and go, but it won't affect the security. That's huge.
With our proof of use of work model, we're going to use 50% of those miners for use of work. So we're very confident in our network security. So and why? Because we've built it on Bitcoin, right? We've really focused on what makes the most secure sense.
So then we have the team, right? So it's decentralized, but there's a team running things. How does that work?
Well, it's completely decentralized, and the team is really irregular, everyday individuals that are participating. So we do have a company. It's called Influx. It's out of the UK, which myself, Tadeusz, and Parker, Jeremy Anderson, our CTO, and so on and so forth for Influx all reside there. And the easiest way to explain that is Lightning Labs to Bitcoin.
Right.
Flux doesn't have a company. It belongs to the world, right? But we do have to have a business entity that helps to develop. And there are multiple business entities that run on top of that infrastructure now. So it's not just Influx. There's Run Flux. There's a bunch of other projects that are building the same infrastructure on top of the platform, and their business models on top of the platform. So, it is good to have a company that's dedicated. I've dedicated myself, Tadeusz, and Parker have all dedicated our lives from this point forward, our careers, to make sure that this is my legacy project. I want to leave something for my kids better than what I had. And I think the way to do that is with data security. It's with decentralization. It's with the ability to not be controlled by any central entity. So, I'll hand it to them someday, and hopefully they hand it to their kids and they hand it to their kids.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. And the goal is just for the growth to continue. You do think 100,000 WordPress sites could be building on the Flux network one day?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're in the 500s now. I mean, that's and we're completely in beta. We haven't even released this into full release candidate yet. So We're looking later this year. As a matter of fact, in 2 weeks at Mining Disruptor, we're going to unveil proof of use of work. WordPress will come out of beta. Flux Drive will come out of beta. Our goal is by next year to have everything in its final state. You're never in a final state, but you know what I'm saying, deployment state. And let it rip. I mean, what we're working on right now is solidifying and shoring up in a bear market when everybody's looking the other way. We're working on building the infrastructure in the background to make sure when we go into our bull market, we're ready to handle that influx. No pun intended.
Wow. Okay. So where's the best place to hold Flux? Because it's only on a few amount of exchanges. I don't know if you have a listing team or anything, but where do you recommend is the best place to kind of store it?
We don't have a listing team, and we don't ever trust exchanges. So if it's not in your wallet, you don't own it. So Zelcore happens to be our product. We like it. You can run nodes on it. It's a multi-asset platform. There's 60,000 tokens that you can add to that thing, plus main chains and everything else. It's probably one of the best multi-asset platforms out there. And I'm not just saying it because it's our product. It's what I use personally because it makes sense. So you can also use a ledger. You can store it as a token, so Ethereum-based token on Ledger, which is super easy to do. And there are other wallets. Trust Wallet, cryptowallet.com is another one. So there's a bunch of them that already have Flux and the PA chains as well.
Is there anything else you want to share about this network that I might not have covered? Because there's so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is the fact that Flux has now cracked the top 100 supercomputers in the world. I think that's a very interesting. And as a matter of fact, we might be in the top 75 right now. And we're just getting started. So, I mean, we could easily switch on the go button and we could add more infrastructure and we could be in the top 10, I believe, very quickly. But our goal is to, Elon Musk ran out and bought 10,000 GPUs because he wants to work on his AI model. He can't compute resources. But Elon, if you're listening, it would be easy to deploy that on Flux today. Literally today, you could do that. We could isolate those resources. So I think you're going to see a lot of changes within the next 2 months coming to Flux, and it's going to be groundbreaking. We're very focused on fixing the problem, and that's compute resources and putting it into the right hands. Our marketplace will launch, we already have one marketplace, but our revised marketplace to allow other projects to participate in compute resource rental. So, I mean, it really is a game changer, and I'm excited to see how it continues to materialize.
Yeah, companies are paying a fortune for AI compute. That's what Bitcoin miners are going in to start doing, right? Starting to help with AI compute. Elon Musk investing in it. It's just unbelievable they haven't heard about this yet because it's like 100 times cheaper than what they're paying for.
Yep. And that's our goal is we want to be the one when somebody says we need additional resources, well, then we're going to run on Flux.
Super exciting. Where can people go to learn more?
Yeah, you can check us out on Twitter. It's Run on Flux. You can also check out, if you want to hear the ramblings of a crazy old man, it's at DAK_Flux. You can visit us online at runonflux.io and join our Discord community. That's where all the action happens. We have a Telegram too, but I would suggest not going there. You're running with scissors if you're in there. So definitely come to Discord. It's a little bit better moderation in there, and it's definitely. And we'd love to help people. If you have questions, come check us out and do your research. Compare Flux to the other projects that are out there in the space, and I think you'll be very, very surprised and very happy when you start to fall down that rabbit hole.